Welcome everybody. We're joined here with Phil. He has joined the 10K Club and he started off with £600 for his Amazon journey. So this is going to be a really cool interview to find out how he did that. Welcome Phil. How are you?
Yeah, well, thank you very much, mate. You good?
Yes, very good. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. And let's crack. Is that a fox in your bottom right-hand corner? I've just noticed that. Is that a fox? Yeah, it looks like
it will be. This will be I don't know if you can see, like a library kind of room we've got going on in here. So yeah, we've got some decorations. Yeah.
Going off-piste, but it's a good start. Cool. So you're a member of the SellerPro Academy for anyone that didn't know. And when people make their first 10,000 or their first 100,000 in sales, then we get some awards that look a bit like this. I'm just using these for the camera. 10K award and a 100K award. Let's get it in the light. So you have reached the first 100K. No, 10K. First 100, 10K. 100K soon.
But 100's the next one. That's what I'm aiming for.
Definitely. And we'll get on to when we think that will be soon. But let's kind of start with your journey, because we'll get on to the, start with 600 and generate 10,000 soon. But I just want to kind of go back a little bit further into why you wanted to start selling on Amazon and kind of what concerns you had at the time and, if you had any experience before.
Yeah. Why? Just first of all, it was just for like a little bit of extra money beside my job. Took me a while to get into it, just making that leap of faith of separating with your money to buy a product to start selling. Like you mentioned already, I started only with 600 quid because that's all the spare cash I had at the time, and then just invested it and then kept on going and up and up and up. First started off with just a book of how to do it, which got me the basics and got me on.
Was it the best? It better have been the best book in the world.
It was, actually.
Oh my God. The best book in the world, anyone, link in the description.
So yeah, read that and kind of went a bit Lone Ranger on it, got my product up onto market and started selling, realising I was doing quite a bit in PPC, which is obviously the advertising campaigns, and you were doing something at the time, and I reached out to you and you said, I can help you out with that. And between you and Jason, you helped with my sales. Then I enrolled in the course because I thought if the PPC is good, the rest of it's got to be pretty good as well. And then from there, just kind of skyrocketed up and now have like a substantial business that pays what it needs to do and works well for me around my life. So it's good.
That's incredible. And it's great that you kind of, you started with the book, you started to gain knowledge and just kind of went for it. I think one of the hardest things to do is actually, like you said, buy stock, right? It's a scary thing to do. So kind of what was going through your mind at that point? Were you kind of worried that it would fail or worried that you'd done something wrong, or what was happening?
The first bit, obviously, separating the money, and you think, what happens if it doesn't work out? And at the time, obviously, that 600 quid was quite a bit, but I thought, well, if you don't do it, you're not ever going to do it. So I just went through and bought the stock, but flirted with the idea beforehand, obviously making inquiries with suppliers and that, but never actually following it through until I just thought, I need to do this. If I don't do this, it's never going to happen. So I bought that first bit of stock, and then it just all got exciting from there and all become a reality and all got shipped to the warehouse, and that's where it all began.
Amazing. How was it when that first kind of real person customer sale came through? Do you remember like when it was or anything like that?
Yeah, so I think it felt a bit surreal because you think someone's actually buying my stuff. Like I've actually now done this, and someone's actually purchased it and will have use of this at their home. And it was a bit weird at first, but then the first sale is so much. So when you get 5 sales, you're like over the moon. Then obviously as it gets more and more, then when you're hitting like 10, 20, 30 a day, you're like, wow, it's mind blowing. So, yeah, that first one is quite an achievement in itself. You feel so like overwhelmed that what you've actually put to work is actually working for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is because it's a question I ask like pretty much every single time on these like interviews, because everyone always has the same response, which is quite funny. It's always, it's surreal. Like literally you said, it's surreal because other people that you don't know are buying a product that you've put effort into, and they're not doing you a favor by buying it. They're buying it because they think it's the best product for them. And I mean, that for me, when that happened, even like, it doesn't matter if it's your first product or your second or third or fourth, it doesn't matter. It's just like, oh, okay, like that sigh of relief of it worked. You know, it worked. I did what I needed to do. What about then? Because you had some sales, you went out of stock. So you sold out. How fast did you kind of sell out for those first few units?
So for the first couple of months, it was only a few little sales coming in, trickling up. And then when it started to build and my campaign started to come to effect, I started getting ranked, and I was getting a lot of organic sales as well. And then this was the time of like kind of March, April last year, then coronavirus hit. So I went for a massive spike in sales, so then nothing because my stock went out.
Yep.
And it took some time to get it all back in. And yeah, there was times in that period where I thought, oh, nothing's happening. Obviously, it's just gone stale, and you kind of doubt everything, and you think, oh, what's going to happen next? Can I still do this? But it's just about obviously thinking, well, it clearly works. Get your head down. Obviously, it's unfortunate the events that happened, but all you need to do is just quickly build that back up. It sells, and then as soon as I did get my stock back in, it literally just went straight back up again, which was brilliant, which was really exciting.
Was that like again another sigh of relief?
Yeah, especially the waiting. You're like on edge for like a couple of months waiting for the stock to come in, and then when it all come back in, you think, well, is it going to work again this time? And it did. As soon as it was back on the market, straight back up. Sales, obviously, it's good.
Yeah. What did you find to be kind of to date the hardest part?
The hardest part. Probably like getting everything just right. Like the tweaking of, it's not just the product you sell, it's obviously what the whole thing is. Obviously the pictures need to tell a story, as well as obviously your description and that, to make sure that the product that you are putting forward is going to be the best product in the customer's eyes. So the getting that all right was probably the hardest bit, but once you have conquered that kind of hurdle, then it just flows, which is just wonderful. It just all works out for you. So there are some bits you need to overcome, but it works.
That's definitely true as well for anyone watching. Those small tweaks when you're just finessing, your images, and you're making small changes with graphics or the placement or the word count. Those are things that may seem quite small, and you're like, oh, I'm only changing a few words, or I'm only changing the placement of a picture, but they can have massive impacts, or they can have small micro impacts. But if you're doing enough of them over time, then it can build up to be, just 1% increase a week in sales can, adds up to a lot over a year, or 1% increase in, whatever it may be, or you lowered your ACOS. It makes a difference over time. How did you find the PPC? Because for anyone that didn't know, then this was before we released the kind of new SellerPro Academy, which was mid last year. We were, I reckon it was around, I can't remember when it was, but we were beta testing the PPC modules. So we have about 4 modules in the course. We were beta testing them to make sure that they worked in the way that we wanted them to work. So how did you find that process? Because PPC is generally, again, one of those really hard topics.
It's something you definitely need to tackle and have the knowledge to go forward with it. Like I said, when I first started, I kind of went rogue and thought, well, I'll just put everything at top whack and that's what's going to happen and that will get me there. But there's more little tweaks, and there's more of a background thinking of how things actually work, and there's a structure that you need to put in place that does actually help you with your PPC. And every week just looking at optimizing and lowering bits and putting bits up only by a couple of pence, but it all works out really well. And then when you start getting them organic sales from the PPC because you've ranked so high, that's just brilliant in itself.
Yeah. So what about future plans? So for this year, do you have a goal for the end of the year? If so, what is that goal?
Obviously the 100K.
We'll get your name on that.
Just to build up what I've started. So now I've got the foundations of something that works. I've been looking at a second product I'm hoping to launch very soon. I'm in talks with obviously the graphic designers and other people and the photographer to make sure that everything I've learned from the first product I can now implement onto the second product. And well, I know I'm going to hit the ground running with it. So my goal is to get a second product launch and obviously just grow my business.
Fantastic. And what would you say is like the most important thing that you've learned? But also, I guess, the biggest bit of advice you could give someone else that hasn't actually launched their first product yet?
Persistence on the, obviously, the reason people do things like this is because they have some sort of dream of what they want to achieve, be it an extra couple of £100 a month, or maybe change their whole lifestyle to be that working from home thing and not having a 9 to 5 anymore. So just to make sure that whatever your goal is, keep going for it. And yeah, I think that's it. Just obviously the persistence that you need, and never doubt yourself, and just take that first leap of faith. That was the hardest bit for me, I think. Obviously separating with physical cash to buy a product. But as soon as you do it, it just all falls into place. But it's just taking that first leap, I think. That's the hardest bit.
I think that's some really good advice. It's because that's the hardest thing, isn't it? Is like you learn all this information, you have all this knowledge and information, but you have to implement it to make any use of that information. And it's hard. I get it. Like it's nerve-wracking. And once you press that button and you like pay, then I feel like that weight lifted off your shoulders when you're like, oh, okay, that's the hard bit done. When in actual fact, it's not really the hard bit. You know, running the business is the bulk of the work. But it's always that case where you build yourself up and you've done all this research, you've done all of this like preparation for, 1 or 2 clicks of a button.
Yeah.
But I guess once you've learned that, then you have so much more confidence, for the future, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's learning every day and along the way. Like you can get all the bits together and you think you know what you're doing, but until you're actually physically selling and you know what happens, you don't. So when you actually need the physics, you learn every day, like of what works best and what doesn't work and what you need to do. So you can have all the game plan ready to go, get the product on, but you're still learning all the time.
Yeah. How did you find then the course? Because you started with the book and that kind of gives you some foundations of like, why we do certain things, but it's not so much about the implementation of how to do it. So how did you find, I guess, the course compared to that other type of content?
A book obviously is just black and white, it's pages, and you can't really be taken through a step-by-step process with a book. You can read it and obviously take in some of the knowledge, but with the course, it's broken up in a way that it will take you from A, B, C, all the way through to where you will be launching your product, which is where you want it to kind of be. You need the steps and it goes through in detail and it shows you like on like not a PowerPoint presentation, but it shows you actually on the screen what bits you would need to do here and what bits you need to click. And that's the good bit about it, because the process is all kind of laid out in a very easy way, to be honest. It's not complicated, you're not overwhelmed, and you can go at your own pace as well. So the course did work really well for me, and I appreciate that.
I'm glad you liked it. You could have said it was bad, and I'd be like, oh well, this is a bad interview. Oh dear, let's recount that. I mean, and you're one of the people in the group where you're always interacting in the Facebook group. You're always on the calls as well. We do calls every 2 weeks, and I think that's also a really important thing for someone that's starting is, if you're doing this alone and you need help, or you just need to ask a question, like even if it's not me, right? There's still other people in our community that are willing to help. They might be a step ahead or whatever. And I honestly believe having people around you is so influential to your own success. So if I was to start a business, let's say in property, and I didn't know anything about property or know anyone that did it, then I'm going to make mistakes, right? I'm going to pay too much for something when I didn't need to, or hire someone that's going to be rubbish. Just by having people, I think that's a big part of it as well. And you've been a big part of that community as well, helping other people.
That's been a big help in the whole process as well. The whole Facebook community that we have, everyone is at different stages. Obviously, there's people that are just beginning. There are people that are in the 100K club and have done it all. And the fact that everyone can share their tips and tricks is amazing. You support each other as well. And like I said, the accountability that if you say, I'm going to do this, and you put it up there, then you kind of have to stick to your guns and actually do it. And that helps you along to push you as well to make sure you get what you want to do. So, the community around this whole program as well is fantastic. It really does help.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for being part of it. So you've been,
Thanks so much.
been really useful in it. So last bit of advice or words of, let's say words of wisdom for someone that's watching this. You know, a lot of people watching the channel, they're interested in FBA, they're just starting, or maybe they've already launched. Like what's your words of wisdom, the Phil's ethos?
Phil's ethos. Well, to be the best, whatever you want to be, you need to invest in yourself, and you need to have a structure to whatever you want to do. So my thing is be brave, take that leap of faith, do what you need to do, and crack on. And there will be difficult times, but as long as you know where your end goal is and you're persistent with it, then you're going to succeed. So that's my weird sort of thing.
Be brave. I like that a lot. If you do want to join the Academy, everyone, it is by basically application only. I'll put a link down below. Phil, thank you so much for joining me and for sharing your success. What we'll probably do is later this year, when you do hit the 100K, then we'll do another interview and we'll recap all of that. How does that sound?
Fantastic. Looking forward to it. Cheers,
Amazing.
mate.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Oh, cheers. Bye.